Good morning. My name is Adela Pineda Franco. I'm the director of the Teresa Lozano Long Institute of Latin American Studies at UT Austin. I am here to welcome you all to Archiving Objects of Knowledge with Latin American Perspectives, the 2022 Lozano Long Conference, a landmark of the Institute, created under the directorship of Brian Roberts in 2008, featuring Ricardo Lagos, former president of Chile, as keynote speaker. The conference has hosted since then prominent intellectuals, presidents, journalists, activists, policymakers, artists, musicians. It has provided interdisciplinary frameworks for the discussion of myriad topics, from food systems to natural disasters, Black women's intellectual contributions to the Americas, to name a few. Since 2011, it has become one of the signature events of Lilas Benson, the partnership between the Institute and the Nettie Benson Latin American Collection. The conference embraces the ethos of Lilas Benson. It promotes dialogue among disciplines to tackle present-day challenges. It provides historical and contextual perspectives of Latin America. It enhances socially engaged research, and it reflects our commitment to a horizontal scholarly exchange with Latin American institutions and people. This conference it could not be a better scenario for what is going on today in the world. We acknowledge that we are living in a very difficult time, and our minds and hearts are with those who are suffering the impact of war. This year, the conference is a most special event because it is dedicated to the Benson Centennial. All of you are here because we think that your work is particularly relevant to commemorate this magnificent library. You all have enlightened us on how to imagine and give course to the transformative potentials of libraries, physical and virtual archives, to build bridges between past and present realities, connect regional with global concerns, and construct the pillars for better futures. The seed and planning of the conference precedes my appointment as director. I thank my colleagues, Virginia Garrard and Javier Augero, Lilas Benson directors, and my colleague, Melissa Guy, director of the Benson, who began the planning of this conference more than 1 year ago. Most of all, I want to thank Professor Lina del Castillo, along with graduate students Rafael Nieto Bello, Janet Núñez, and Camila Ordorica Bracamontes, who were the architects of this program. Last, but not least, I thank Paloma Diaz-Lobos, Assistant Director of Scholarly Programs at Lilas Benson, who has coordinated all of us to be here today. My special thanks to our keynote speakers, Mauricio Tenorio Trillo, Cristina Rivera Garza, Gustavo Meoño Brenner, and Arndt Brendecke. Thank you.
Let me unmute. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Melissa Guy, Director of the Benson Latin American Collection, and it is so great to have you join us for this year's Lozano Long Conference, one of the culminating events of the Benson Latin American Collection Centennial. I want to thank Lina del Castillo for putting together such a thought-provoking program, along with graduate students Rafael Nieto Bello, Jeanette Núñez, and Camila Ordorica Bracamontes. And as she does every year, Paloma Diaz manages all of the details with such expertise. And finally, I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to Jenny Garrard and Javier Augero, former directors of Lilas Benson, for prioritizing the Benson Centennial and devoting the resources of the Lozano Long Conference to it. And of course, Lilas Director Adela Pineda for her continued commitment to the Benson and the Lilas Benson partnership. For me, the Benson Centennial has represented an opportunity to reflect on the past of this storied library. And over the next 2 days, some of our most beloved collections will be in the spotlight: the famed Relaciones Geográficas, the papers of Gloria Anzaldúa, and the literary masterpieces of Julio Cortázar come to mind. More importantly, though, the centennial presents us with an opportunity to think about the possibilities for the future of the Benson and the Lilas-Benson partnership, and the program we have before us represents the best of those futures. In fact, the program is so rich, I would love to have the opportunity to acknowledge each panel and participants' contribution, but I know we all want to get on with the actual event. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to highlight just a few things. For a while now, Lilas-Benson has been focused on the broader question of what it means to engage in ethical cultural heritage stewardship, and I am pleased to see that that conversation will continue here. I want to acknowledge Gustavo Meoño Brenner, one of our keynote speakers and a longtime friend of Lilas-Benson, for continually pushing us to do more to protect at-risk archives and the human stewards of those collections. Our post-custodial archival approach is one attempt to work in this space. Similarly, over the last few years in particular, collection development strategies at the Benson have consciously shifted to amplify the voices of those traditionally underrepresented in archives, especially women writers and artists. I want to call attention to the keynote address by the famed Cristina Rivera Garza and the presentation by Lilas-Benson Affiliate Research Fellow Adriana Pacheco, who in different ways illuminate the power of presence of women in archives and libraries, and more importantly, the ways in which we must think about knowledge production and cultural heritage stewardship in the context of intersectional identities, including, of course, gender. Finally, digital scholarship is and will continue to be a hallmark of Lilas-Benson. I'm eager to engage with the panelists who are doing groundbreaking work in this field and pushing us to think about the life cycle of digital collections from acquisition to access in ways that center our users and preserve invaluable materials for the future. With that, I will once again thank you for being here, and I will hand it over to Lina.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you, Adela, both for your kind words of welcome. I am very happy to be here today with all of you, and I'm so grateful for your patience also with some of the technical difficulties that can happen with an online conference. The origins of this conference were in January 2021 when vaccines were still not clearly on the horizon. And now, of course, we are opening our conference in a moment of quite a bit of tense potential or actual war. And in some ways, the perspectives that Latin America can give us when it comes time to identify and time to historicize what happens in moments of conflict, it's so important to keep clear records and archives precisely for this reason. And that's definitely one of the themes that will be covered in our conference over the course of the next 2 days. I'd like to thank again, echo some of the thanks that Adela and Melissa have given to Jenny Gerard, Javier Aullero, of course, Melissa, and then of course Adela in terms of thinking through the possibility of this conference. I'm especially grateful for the work of Camila Orderica Bracamontes, Rafael Nieto Bello, and Jeanette Nunez, 3 outstanding graduate students that have played central roles in the conceptualization of the conference and also for their work with outreach towards other graduate students throughout the College of Liberal Arts whose research resonates with the keynote speakers, the discussants, the panelists. They have done an amazing job in doing the intellectual connections that can foment research and advance our boundaries of knowledge, moving them forward. And in this sense, I would also very much like to thank Not Even Past, the public-facing website from the history department here at the University of Texas at Austin, and especially Adam Clulo and Gabriel Esparza, who have been publishing these wonderful pieces by our UT graduate students and an undergrad, John Erard, who have written up their reviews of the work by these wonderful scholars, archivists, activists. And so I would put you to looking at the ones that are available right now through Not Even Past. I also would like to remind everybody that the format of this conference is a little bit different than what you may be used to, in the sense that all the panelists' presentations have been pre-recorded. And so they're available now for you to watch, and later they'll continue to be available on our conference website for the next 9 months until the next Lozano Long Conference runs. And then after that, they will move to Not Even Past, and all our proceedings and the knowledge produced through this conference will be archived digitally for as long as we have access to Not Even Past, so hopefully for a very long time. So that is kind of the overview for the conference. This is basically how to think archivally in the times of COVID. When face-to-face meetings have become so difficult, when social distancing is so important, but then it also allows us to rethink, well, how can we do an international conference with the greatest accessibility for the broadest possible audience, precisely because these presentations are pre-recorded and accessible to the public worldwide for free. This meets the mission of public university, and also is seeking to decolonize knowledge in the sense that there's very real material differences between universities in the United States and universities in other places in the region. And so in this sense, it brings much more of a horizontal exchange, as Adela has pointed out in her comments earlier. So without further ado, I'd like just to set that as kind of the framework for our conference. I do hope you have the chance to see the pre-recorded presentations, but we also have live streamed keynote speakers, including today's wonderful keynote speaker. I'm very excited to present to you Dr. Mauricio Tenorio Trillo. He's professor of history at the University of Chicago and associate professor at the Centro de Investigación y Docencia Económicas, the CIDE, in Mexico City. His work focuses on the cultural and social history of Mexican urbanism, particularly of Mexico City. He is the author most recently of I Speak of the City, Mexico City at the Turn of the 20th Century from 2013, which connects the realms of literature, architecture, music, popular language, art, and public health to investigate the city in a variety of contexts. His book, Cleo's Laws on History and Language from 2019 explores the process of perceiving and writing about history, nationalism, and identity. He received his PhD from the history of Stanford University in 1993, and his talk today is on history and monuments. We're very excited for your words today, Dr. Mauricio Tenorio Trillo, and thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you very much. Is there a possibility for me to share the screen?
I think so. Let's see. Yes.
Now, okay. Thank you. So, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. For me to deliver a talk in Austin at the Benson Library is more than a simple academic moment. It is an honor, and above all, it is very nostalgic and full of saudade para mí for the many years and the many good moments I spent in the University of Texas at Austin, especially at the Benson. So in that regard, I would like to, just a minute. This is the wrong one. Just a minute. I have another one. Just a minute. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is this thing? Stop share. Just a minute. I need to look for the real thing, but I cannot find it. Just a minute. Okay. Sorry about that. Is that I had terrible problems today in connecting. I was in the university at the Pompeu Fabra, but I couldn't access the thing, so I had to come back to my house, and I was running. Now, how do I do the play slideshow? How do I put play here? Do anybody knows how to play this thing?
If you try slideshow, it should be able to play.
Here?
Up on the top. And then play from start.
Play from start. Okay. So, so I thank the University of Austin, especially my good old friend, Adela Pineda. And because of that, because I was delivering such a talk to an important institution for me, I want to remember, together with my good friend Adela Pineda, in this talk, for all those hours and time I spent at the Benson Latin American Collection. Those of you who have, not that you have to, but if you have read any of my books and articles, you will find that my gratitude to the Benson is always there. But I want to use this moment to recall two friends, one that Adela and I recall with great esteem and with sadness. One is the great poet Enrique Fierro, our professor, our friend, who died some years ago. And my former student, my first graduate student in my life, Daniel Howard, who died last year too. And so I want to talk to Austin, remembering them as part of that Austin that Adela and I and Pablo Picato and so many others knew, and we are always nostalgic of them. Unfortunately, we already have lost one of us, Daniel Howard, my first student, and our good friend and mentor, Enrique El Gordo Fierro. So please, I want to, whatever I say today, I want it to be in honor of both of them and my beautiful and beloved Benson collection, where I often hang around with them. So what I'm going to say, I want to use a disclaimer, is just my thinking out loud. I've been writing about these issues for a long time. It's not necessarily about Mexico, but it's also about Mexico, but it's something that I'm thinking out loud, and you might not like it, and you might be upset. So please be tolerant. It's not something definitive. I'm thinking out loud these ideas. So please have pity on me. So what I'm going to try to do in very fast way, because it's a long thing that I have written. I don't know whether as a book or as an article, I don't know. It has 5 parts. The first is just very briefly tell you what is the current debate about monuments and history in a very opinionated fashion, not only because I'm opinionated, which I am, but also because I want to save time. Then I want to show you why I think history is being in the abyss, and I will show you what I mean by this. Then I want to deal with the up and downs of monuments that we are living throughout the world, in Mexico, in Barcelona, in the United States, and try to prove you there is exactly the same thing. To erect or to demolish a monument is part of the same thing. Then I will try to show you how to try to make monuments good ruins. And I want to agree with all the debates about, or agree and disagree with all the debates about monuments and history and identity and memory, but I want above all to define a historian's vice, which is history's garbage dump, the need to keep everything, the vice to keep as an antiquarian every single thing. If you want to remove whatever, but don't destroy it. And finally, I want to do a brief something that is very experimental to me, because I'm not an expert in art history, let alone in contemporary art history. Because I have the impression, using one line from the Panchos, a very famous Mexican trio, ¿En qué quedamos por fin, me quieres o no me quieres? Between art history, contemporary art, and history. So for a long time, history and art have been together in all these monuments and in all these things. And contemporary art now is being used to commemorate this and that. But is there really love between what we call contemporary art and history? Or are we facing a final divorce between what is contemporary art and the notion of history? So this is what I'm going to deal with to you today. So let's be very rapid about my opinionated opinions, since you might already have read them somewhere. So there are two things I want to say about the current debates in two brief opinionated statements. The first about identities. For me, identities are a pain. They are a damage that will be very slow in coming because the incubation of la maladie identitaire takes a lot of time. And the unbearable contexts that we see today to win victimhood are just early symptoms of what is going to happen. The disease advances and is more serious than it appears. How many generations will come and go convinced that identity, any, is another name for peace, justice, honesty, lucidity, beauty, and goodness, and not what all identities are, namely a war report, a sense of defeat that incorporates the loser's rage, enough resignation as just keep going, and the infamy of a dishonorable victory. If we look carefully, all identities are these, but we live in times in which identities is wonderful and everything is based on identities. And I just don't trust, as we are facing now a new war with nations and states and all these, that identities have been a very good category of historical analysis and political action. The second contention is even more opinionated, just to put it clearly. So history from Magistra Vita, from the Master of Life, to history as Maestro Limpio. Those of you from Mexico know that Maestro Limpio is this detergent, that we use to clean the floors. And so I think that recent public debates about monuments and history seem to conceive history not as an essay, not as a mere try to get facts right, not as a modern effort to improve discussions of justice, but as an unstoppable moral upgrading. Thus, we, the inhabitants of the present, are assumed to be not only wiser vis-a-vis anyone in the past, but morally superior to any past. History, thus, is seen as the endless struggle between good and evil, in which only the present can furnish the grounds to do justice today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Hence, history becomes a sanitizer to mop the past, to get rid of all past evils, as if we could somehow avoid being a star in the abyss because we know better and we are morally superior to anybody in the past. This is what I feel with these two very opinionated contentions about what we are living. You can agree or disagree, but this is just the beginning to explain you what will be my view about it. Why history as the abyss? You know, often as historians or in many books I've written, people ask me, well, why history? And they even asked me another one because they're going to re-edit a very famous Mexican book that was published in the 70s called Historia para qué? And they again asked me, Historia para qué? Frankly, I have no answers for the why of the need of history, celebration, and monuments. Writing, memorializing, researching, or teaching history can be justified neither with neuroscience as some do now, nor with, as many others do, with social justice arguments. We're going to say, we're going to be empathic, we're going to work for those with no history. I don't think neither one justifies the idea of history. Simply, I do history, we do it because we do it. And history has been both an inconsequential and a very dangerous knowledge. About the why of history, I say what Paul Celan said of poetry, which if you look carefully, it's another form of knowledge that humanity keeps reproducing with no real sense of why. Ask me why people write poetry since ancient times. I have no idea, they just do it. So Celan said, like man himself, the poem lacks sufficient grounds, or also the poem has its reasons within itself. with this foundation, it rests in the abyss. Poetry or history as force of knowledge are about being a star in the abyss we live. And that's all I know. I cannot justify the writing of history because I'm saving the war, or I'm working for the poor, or I will save the victims, or I will work for the state. No, I just think it's a form of knowledge very close to poetry, which we keep doing it as a form to face the tragedies of the present. For centuries, monuments were born with the awareness that they will eventually grow into ruins. It is very important, the idea of ruins for me. The idea of ruins is vital for my thinking of history, not only because I'm a walker of cities and I constantly see ruins of everything, layers over layers of different cities. The passing of times ruins all human creations and not subjected to what the Renaissance put in circulation, restoration, preservation. Think of these examples in the ancient times, the destruction of the Solomon Temple, and how the Roman emperor invaded Jerusalem and then created an ark to celebrate it. And then the ark was totally forgotten until the Renaissance, when the obsession with Greco-Roman ruins became very popular. Even in the New World, entire pre-Hispanic cities were already forgotten ruins by the time of the arrival of the Spaniards. Mexicans themselves erected pyramid over pyramid, as if they knew their destiny was to be later, sooner or later, ruins. And ruins are everywhere in painting and everywhere, and we work on ruins. And I want you to see ruins not only as something that passes and stays there or survive or something. I wanted to see as part of a garbage dump of history where we always go back to recycle, to find out, to learn, to invent, to imagine, to look for inspiration, to understand the past differently and the present. And that's why ruins for me are very important. For centuries, the cult of monument has implied the cult of the chisel, but also of the mallet. That is, the destruction and the construction of monuments is a co-substantial thing. The art of making as part of the art of demolishing structures. More recently, due to the mesmerizing effect of digital media. Today, what is more of a monument? The one erected for Saddam Hussein, or the videos and images of his stopping? If you see, we think that we are now brand new and we are so, we are working for social justice and we are so avant-garde because we are demolishing all the bad guys and removing from the cities all the bad guys that were slave owners or that were bad people. No, since the beginning, it has been like this. We are just part of a continuum of destroying and constructing monuments. Think of the French Revolution. The French Revolution, together with many revolutions in the 19th century, including many in Spain or many, or up to the Russian Revolution, was a massive destruction of monuments, as you can see in these images of the destruction of monuments during the French Revolution. And what did the French Revolution did? Construct many other monuments, but the destruction was part of the construction of the monuments. So much so that in the beginning of the 19th century, something like Goya, as always, gave us the lesson and made this painting of people destroying in the Napoleonic Wars. But the actual legend or label of the painting was "No saben lo que hacen," those who are destroying the monument. But my point is, it's always been like that. It's not that we are now inventing the destruction and removal because now we are morally correct. Every new era destroys the old ones and tries to construct the new ones. And a new era comes and then tries to revive the old ones. Because up and down, it's the same thing. What do monuments do? How are they made? Ruins are the origins and the destiny of the monumental fever from the 15th century to the 21st century. Ruins are used to think all the monuments, even the contemporary 19th century monuments. If you look carefully into the pedestals, or the images, they are full of quotes and ideas coming out of Greco-Roman ruins and other ruins, as I will show you in a moment. However, all these monuments, how we think the monuments, is very important to know that that monuments are not about the past. Whatever we say about this monument, whether Columbus was a good guy or a bad guy, whether Robert E. Lee was a good guy or a bad guy, in fact, we are not talking about the past. It's all about the present. It's always about the present, not about the past. Monuments do not crystallize, though they attempt, a history, a past, an event, a hero. They materialize the parameters of debates about past and present. They ignore and delete a lot, but they also include a lot more than what current Manichaean debates assume. I will show you why. Monuments, above all, seek to freeze time, to freeze the past, and to conquer the future. They are often more memorable as ruins than as monuments. That's why every monument wants to be a good ruin, wants to survive as a good ruin, as an Egyptian obelisk, for instance. Monument freeze times, but the frozen product is unstoppable time. Thus they become black holes, not of history, the past, but of historiography, a moment in the how history has been viewed. Monuments seem to conquer future views of history, their massive material existence, their being part of social and memory issues of cities, issues, make monuments a real avanzada in the future. But they fail. Monuments rarely conquer the future and only as a space, and they never freeze time. So why keep doing such a fruitless thing? Why do we keep doing it? I think that by seeking to freeze the past and conquering the future, humans have found a way to cope up with the past. Not to cope up with the past, but not with the future, but with the fleeting present. Every time a new monument is erected or destroyed, it is assumed that this time around, it is the real thing. This time, we are not only right about our interpretation of the past, but we are morally virtuous like never before. Aesthetically innovative, nobody is going to defeat our styles, and no future will destroy our history, our moral values, and our aesthetic taste. Of course, as a historian, I'm not allowed to believe so much. Now, let me give you examples of all this rapidly, hopefully. As you can see, this is the monument to Columbus, one of the many monuments to Columbus inaugurated in the second part of the 19th century in the International Exhibition in Barcelona in 1888. So it is about Columbus, it is about America. You know what it is. Columbus is pointing out to America, though it was a mistake. It's not pointing out to America, but it was supposed to be pointing out to America. Now, it's all about America. It's all about America. In fact, when one analyzes the whole discussion about it, and it was a whole discussion about it and how important it was for the city and everything, and there was a Columbus in Mexico, Columbus in Buenos Aires, a Columbus everywhere. It was not about America. It was not about the past. It's about the present of Catalonia in 1888, about how much Catalonia was also part of the empire. And that's why one of the monuments included is of Fray Bernat Boyle, who was a Valencian, part of the Països Catalans, priest that went with Columbus in his second trip, Christianizing India. This is a regional power in the last part of the 19th century, with national Catalanism growing, with the importance of industry in Catalonia, locating itself within Spain. And that's what the monument is about. There's nothing about 1492. It's all about the last part of the 19th century. And as such, it was very important, but it's not about Columbus. Now think of the Charles Cordier, which is the author, a very important French sculptor, which was hired by a wealthy Mexican to design the Mexican Columbus, which was until very recently in El Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City. This is the original painting, the original project for the Mexican Columbus. And these are the things he did and was very famous, because he went to Sudan and developed this bust and these images of different races of Africa. And so he was a very well-known sculptor. He was privately hired in 1872 and developed this Columbus monument. Of course, in 1892, this was a wealthy man who wanted to have also a Columbus for Mexico City. At the end, when it was inaugurated in 1876, it was not about Columbus, it was not about 1492, it was not about the monarchy, because in fact, this is about Catholicism and monarchy, because this was thought during Maximilian times. It was about the conservatives trying to make peace with Porfirio Diaz when this monument was inaugurated and given for free to the new government of Porfirio Diaz. So it was all about the present, nothing about the past. The same can be said about the famous monument to la Independencia by Antonio Rivas Mercados, inaugurated in 1910, but long in construction. Again, we can say that it's the mandatory, is the state who did this, is the Porfirio Diaz, is the authoritarian, it's not, doesn't reflect the real Mexico, or whatever you want to say, but in fact, it's a frozen debate, how people conceive the past, and the debates are even there, as I explained somewhere. These are the heroes of the independence. Of course, there was no consensus included in Iturbide, which was basically the real author of Mexican independence. But at least there were a lot of debates among liberal and Catholics, and the radical liberals wanted to include Guilherme de Lampard, who was a crazy 17th century Irish who attempted independence, and they constructed a monument. But at the end, they didn't want to insult the church. So part of the agreement was to locate Lampard inside. So you don't see Lampard, but it's there. It's part of the agreement. So is this an authoritarian thing? Yes, it's an authoritarian thing, but it already freezes and includes the parameters of debate at certain point. Parameters at the moment you analyze it, you talk about it, you open and start, make them alive again. So as authoritarian as it could be, the monument itself is very important for history discussion. Now think of another example to show you all these movements about present, past, and killing. Think of the Cathedral of the Christ the Savior in Moscow. This was a cathedral that was soon thought by one Nicholas Tsar after the defeat of Napoleon. It took forever to finish, but finally it was finished in 1883 to commemorate the defeat of Napoleon. It was huge. But it was destroyed in 1917, of course, by the Russian Revolution. Again, construction and destruction together. And then it became a massive, popular, there was going to be there constructed the palace of the Soviets. But they were never constructed because the war came and there were many things. And for a long time, it was a popular, public pool, warm pool for a long time. But nobody thought that this was going to be reconstructed, and it was. The Cathedral of Christ of the Savior is alive and kicking now. In 2000 was reconstructed, and there you have it. As you can see, it's alive again, but we cannot say that it frozen the future, that it conquers the future, and it will be there forever. If we follow the story of the monument, it was for a long time planned, then was destroyed by a revolution, and then was constructed by a new Russia, but God knows what happened tomorrow. It will be stupid for us to think that is the end of the game. No, it will. Monuments will continue to be destroyed and constructed endlessly. Now, on how to make monuments good dreams. About monuments, fevers, and history, I wonder what is honor. What does the honor? Who does the honoring? And finally, when the moment comes, what is lost when monuments are no more? What's been honored? It's often very simple. The solution is always, you hear it in current debates all the time. Well, the state, the empires, the nation, the wars, conquests, victories, heroes, you know, the bad guys, all the monuments that we are because they were constructed by, racist southern states or by, as Presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador will say, neo-Porfirian elites, neoliberal elites that constructed monuments. But in fact, it's violence. It's all about violence. How many monuments will remain standing in Buenos Aires, in DC, in Paris, or Berlin, if we were to remove all those related to war and violence? So, as bad as it sounds, our species likes to commemorate violence. As part of the monumental fever, demolishing monuments has been often as violent, has been also a violent act. Many acts of destruction of monuments function as monuments themselves. What is more a monument now? Robert E. Lee, or the many selfish and pictures that everybody took when they destroy it? The answer to who does the honoring has become a sort of cliche: the state, the powerful, the elites, the winners in history. History shows, however, that things are more complicated than that. Any historical moment is both an authoritarian mark of the direction of time and a hectic reading of the flavors of time, in which the state as such is vital, but less than as the mastermind and more as the perpetrator. Regardless of whether a monument was organized and erected by private interests or by local or national states, all monuments have involved three kinds of hostilities: historiographical, aesthetic, and spatial, all having to do with the present, not with the past. One thing to keep in mind, for instance, is that in the famous Paseo de la Reforma of Mexico, the only two monuments that were constructed, which is full of monuments, the only two monuments who were constructed by the state up to Avenida Juárez is the Ángel de la Independencia and the 1958 Fuente de Petróleos commemorating the nationalization of the oil industry. The rest were private by local estates who put them there, or by private donors like the Cuauhtémoc and the Diana Cazadora or the Columbus, which were privately produced, as many as we will see in the United States. Now, let's talk about the hostilities. You know, historiographical hostilities have involved the who, how, what, and when in the past. To conceive a historical monument or celebration meant a fight over views of books, archives, and different searches in history's rubbish dump. In any given present, the optical illusion is of getting the historical facts right. In fact, every monument constituted not merely a historiographical improvement, but a recalibration of moral and political arrangements, which in turn becomes a monument precisely because it symbolizes a point of equilibrium amid constant disagreement, chaos. In a way, heroes do not become monuments because they are heroes. They are heroes because they become visible, walkable monuments. That is, the long durée of historiographical debate materializes at times in monuments, which in turn become illustrations in history books and sooner or later the cause of more historiographical controversies. Now, the aesthetic hostilities have been as contentious or more than the historiographical. For long, the classic Greco-Roman forms were the essential model. The romantic naturalist realist depiction blended with classical allegories. Nevertheless, for any monument, there were important aesthetic debates in which artists fought to push forward their own aesthetic views. The spatial hostilities are very important because they have been intrinsically linked to the aesthetic and historiographical debates, but they furnish the monument with certain autonomy vis-a-vis history and the arts. For indeed, there are cities that build monuments like DC or Buenos Aires, but there are monumental spaces that build cities like Athens and Rome, or Mexico City, if you think. Human space has for long surpassed the nature of space, and the nature of a space is vital to understand the monuments. In order to get to the destruction of monuments, I welcome the removal of monuments, but the antiquarian instinct, the history garbage dump is very important. I think that regardless of the debates, regardless of the monuments ought to be considered these incarnation of hostilities of many times that need to be studied. If they need to be removed because they are found offensive or whatever, okay, do it, but don't destroy it. I dream of a warehouse, of a kind of museum of refugees, all the bad guys of the museum. Okay, all those monuments that we are now removing, let's put it in a museum of refugees. I assure you that in not a long time, in no time, the Museum of Refugees will have more visitors than the actual good monuments to the good guys, because the idea of looking into the bad guys will be so strong that the warehouse of the refugees will be very popular. Now, regardless of that idea, I am all for whatever you want to do, discuss, remove, whatever, but don't destroy a thing. Destroying, it's not, maybe it's my antiquarian instinct. I want everything to be kept because they always can be reinterpreted in different ways. I'm also all for irony, and I find that particularly interesting in the pedestals and in the presence and versus absence that they represent, and in the time capsules that monuments include. Let me explain you this. This is the famous monument in the Moscow Pavilion in the Paris exhibition of 1937. It was an ephemeral monument. It was destroyed after that, but it was remade in many ways. It was very successful. It was done, of course, by Stalin, but all the guys who participated in this very successful art exhibition in 1937 in Paris were killed soon after in a purge that Stalin organized. My point here is this was a very important painting, a sculpture that of course was ordered by the state, but it became, because of the artist, because of the moment, because of Paris, such an iconographic moment that it won acceptance more than what it meant to be. And it was above all in front of the Nazi pavilion, which included an imperial eagle of the Third Reich. Now, think of who does the honoring and everything. Okay, you know, the bad guys, the Southerners, constructed a monument to Robert E. Lee, or constructed a monument to a horse, to Traveler, who was a Robert E. Lee horse. But who are more the authors of the honoring of Traveler, the horse of Robert E. Lee? The nasty Southern governors and Southern elite explanters, racist, white supremacist elites who honor the Traveler in a fancy campus in the middle of the South, or the many nobodies who every day stop and throw pennies with the face of Lincoln down so that Lincoln kisses the ass of the horse. Yes, it's the elites, but it's not only the elites. It's racist, but it's not elite racist. It is a lot more complicated than a single will saying this is what we are going to honor. It becomes an issue. Maybe it wasn't meant to be there so that people throw pennies and pretend that Lincoln kisses the ass of the horse, but this is the way it's been interpreted. Or think of the famous obelisk planet from the beginning of the construction of the mall in Washington, D.C. to Washington, D.C. First of all, it's already an adaptation of ruins. It's an obelisk. An obelisk in the 1800s, an obelisk after Napoleon had gone to Egypt, and all the Egyptian arts and all these things were part of imperial paraphernalia. And here is an obelisk for Washington, but it was never finished until the last part of the 19th century. In the 1870s, it was private. In the 1870s, it became a state enterprise. And there were many projects. I wanted to show you this one, the story, by story, the one here, and by Cyril, this one. This was a kind of Italian tower bell to finish it. And this was to recuperate the obelisk, the Egyptian influence, but this was done to a platform made of what they was called the Aztec styles. Now, again, both are ruins of the Aztec, but in order to be very American, story tried to recuperate the Egypt of the America, which were the Aztecs, and created this Aztec platform for the obelisk. Neither one was accepted. And at the end, a very authoritarian decision by West Point engineers decided to do this, which at the time, if you think, we're looking into a monument that was inaugurated in the late 1980s. It looks almost avant-garde because of so stern, clean, not Baroque at all. And moreover, inside at the time had a very important technological innovation. It had a steam elevator. And so it became so classic, but not only because of the style that was unwantedly very aesthetically avant-garde, though at the moment was stern and purely conceived, but because of location. It made the mall. And now it's more important as the space that it occupies than as an obelisk. Now, let me not deal with this because I have no time. This is the Columbus monument that has been removed, as you know. And now look at this. And I want to stop a little bit about the pedestals. I really like pedestals. I think they have an ironic flavor. Isn't it more interesting the thing without the image than with the image? I found out by walking Barcelona and Berlin and Chicago and Mexico, and realized that the pedestals can work as a kind of ironic tone in which we say, you know, we know our sins of the past, but we cannot claim to clean the past. We cannot claim to control all the consequences of this space, all the memories that this monument has created in generations of Chilangos. So we're going to remove, but do something with the pedestals, be more modest. We are not cleaning anybody. We are not morally superior to anybody. But now we are so superior that we can call him a genocide. Or think of this famous Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church in Kudamm, Berlin. It was a fancy church, but think how it was done as a monument. Instead of destroying it, as many others were destroying, it was left as a sign of the war, as it was done. Together with contemporary art, this fancy chapel done in a tower of crystal and iron, very interesting use. Now, the problem for a while, it worked as such, as a monument of the evilness of war. But near there was a terrorist attack, and now it's used by neo-Nazis to show not what the evilness of war, but to show what the war did to Germany. And so the same good solution becomes something else. Here, I just want to mention the issue of when this is the Palacio Legislativo planned by Émile Bernard in the last part of the 19th century. It was never finished, and it became the monument of the revolution by Carlos Obregón Santacilia. When this was constructed, they found that the time capsule that was hidden here. And they claim that finally the Porfirian past and all the ancient times and all the repressive times were gone because the time capsule was stolen. Think of the importance of time capsules. I often think about it, and I think it's for artists and historians a very interesting way to, for instance, this is a monument given to for Germany to Mexico at the side of the Bellas Artes monument, Palacio. It is a monument to Beethoven. You see what it is. But the interesting thing about this is that it became the icon in the 70s and 80s of the gay movement in Mexico City, because a handsome man naked there with a good genital equipment. And so it became the lieu de mémoire for the gay movement. So I often wonder, let's do a time capsule for this one. and include just when in the 1920s, in the centennial of Beethoven, the German government gave and this and how it became part of the Beethoven, but then include the paraphernalia of the gay movement when it worked, when they organized, when they won rights, and include Juan Gabriel, the hero of Mexico, a Mexico hero who was openly gay and was also a musician. And now in 100 times, people will open the capsule and say, what do they mean? It will be very difficult to interpret, but that's exactly what it is. To transmit the irony of our times. We are not better than anybody. We do our best, but this is what we want to transmit to the future. Don't ask us to tell you the truth. We don't know the truth, and we cannot claim to be better than anybody. And you will find us in error, no matter what we do. So elsewhere in Spanish, I expressed my view about the removal of monuments. People wrote me their disagreements, but some of my critics like my ironic tone. Well, irony was my point. That was my suggestion to handle the removal or not of monuments. Irony. I am all for removing monuments. However, I do not share today's common sense of moral, empirical, and political superiority vis-a-vis the past and the future. However, monuments seem to be allergic to irony. That can be seen in the controversies, in the conservative or progressive factions of current debate. No sense of irony whatsoever. I have no formula to conceive the ironic monument, which will be ideal for a historian. But at least irony can be stimulated by merely realizing that erecting or destroying monument has been part of the same task for centuries. And nothing assures the lasting moral qualities, the final historical accuracy, the hip aesthetics of our current attempt to freeze the present and to conquer the future. We need to overcome centuries of imperialistic, heteropatriarchal, empiricist, whatever, but we are part of a continual discussion. We freeze no present, we conquer no future, and yet we must try. In a way, why is it so difficult to accept that venimos y somos una porquería, but dejamos rastro de nuestro esfuerzo de mejora? But let us leave also traces of our consciousness of the irony of what we are doing, and let us be ready to be the laughter and evil matter of the future. Now, let me finish very simple by saying something, because I'm not going to have time, about contemporary art and history. I'm not going to use the examples I have. I just want you to say this. Just a minute. This. I think that contemporary art might have reached a point of no return vis-a-vis history. In a way, there is no problem. Private and public monuments will be erected disregarding what contemporary art stands for. If indeed we have a new, real, multiple, diverse, encompassing, just and clean view of the past, and if indeed in the after avant-gardes, contemporary arts as a shocking, disruptive, conceptual, and naturalist endeavor cannot coexist with monuments and history, then are we really reaching the end of attempting to freeze the past and to conquer the future with history and art? Think of history writing, history representation as it were is a quiche thing, an endless repetition and rewriting of the same forms and motifs. All that is what contemporary art has been struggling to overcome. Contemporary art has been about rupture, shocking, disruption, deep moral codes, innovative, disregarding universal canons. And thus history is for contemporary art like an endless marble that cannot be transformed into conceptual art, ephemeral art, or like a rabbit with a blowing tail, a morally shocking performance, or an installation made with not history rubbish, but real rubbish, real garbage. I do not claim to fully understand contemporary art, but it seems to me that the nutrients of its disruptions are indeed historical results, or are taken as ahistorical artistic motifs. nature, desire, social justice, race, internet, technology, language, identity, difference, violence, queerness. On the other hand, good or bad, hip or conventional, historiography seems to be an airless, erudite lesson meant to be exemplary and entertaining. That is something hardly suitable for contemporary art. On top of that, historical monuments and celebrations are designed with a wider public in mind. And people do not look forward or being shocked or annoyed, less of all by their history. I learned this the hard way when I was mocking Mexico's national heroes in my history classes for immigrants in Pilsen. I was asked to leave them alone, to leave their histories alone. Es todo lo que aquí nos queda. En fin, I will show you examples and everything, but I'm running out of time. I just want to think that I do not think that contemporary art ought to deal with history. I'm not even sure whether it is desirable. But as a city walker, as a historian, I am attentive to find, as George Simmel found in City Ruins, a blend of contemporary art and history that could poise between the non-yet and the no longer. And finally, in sum, we should keep trying. I mean, how will it be like? I mean, contemporary artistic views of history with material lasting existence that, without pretending a present moral superiority, could furnish future art and history with as alluring ruins as the ones historians and artists of yesterday or today have found. An art capable of preserving and using history's garbage dump, all monuments and pedestals, unconscious and willing to eventually have a place in such a dump. Sería conveniente para el arte contemporáneo, porque ya está visto, a la gente de a pie le tiene sin cuidado el arte contemporáneo. La historia, no. After all, today we are just part of the same continuum marked already in the 14th century by the Arcipestre Libro del Buen Amor, and you can read the poem there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Tenorio. That was a wonderful talk that humanizes monuments, gives them life by giving them death, and allowing them to create new life, allowing new monuments to come up from their ruins. And so in many ways, what you're talking about in some ways is a moment of contemporary art that you are crafting in order to get us to think through how to think with monuments spatially. And in many ways, it is a wonderful way for us, and also a disturbing way for us, to think about the role of archives in society as potential monuments. They're pretty, not pretty, our archives themselves. They're kind of humble in ways of kind of how they're actually are on the inside. But there are these monuments that, and many archives themselves are housed in jails. And they're set in these spaces of, in some places of where they've been prisoners. So I'm just, your comments today have me thinking about these connections between this effort through archiving, either through space and monuments, or archiving through records, the effort to try and set the historical record straight, and yet how difficult that is precisely because of the narratives that can encompass how these historical facts are organized or not, or thrown away or made invisible. So this is more, I guess, of a comment and reflection of how your words have landed on me, and also how evocative they are in terms of the ability that we have or not as humans to try and live beyond our limits, which is in some ways what you're talking about too. And so the aesthetics of poetry, the aesthetics of contemporary art in some ways push that boundary more, and also through these monuments, but then also there's these interesting ways in which virtual space has increasingly played a role also in dismantling monuments. So I thank you so much for your comments. I do know that there are several questions from the audience, but first I would like to cede questions to Adela Pineda, who has a question for you.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you, Mauricio, for this thought-provoking talk, as always, Mauricio, that I could not expect less from you. As you were talking, I kept thinking about Walter Benjamin in two senses. The first, the angel of history, looking back at the garbage, the debris of destruction, but also the collector, the rag picker who keeps, assembling stuff to put them again. And I keep thinking of Benjamin because Benjamin, in his utopian revolutionary thinking, also thought of freeing us from historicism, from rebuilding the teleological movement that you are criticizing in your talk, how we think that we have overcome teleology. But these are my reflections. But my question comes thinking about what's happening when history enters the hyper-contemporary. And I am trying to link this with Lina's comment on archives. And I just wrote there a quote by artist and philosopher from German origin, but she's from, lives in Germany. Her name is Ito Steger. And then she says, I love history, but history doesn't love me back. Whenever I call her, I get her answering machine, and she says, insert logo here. My question here is, like, we are living in an era where history is trapped in a loop, because repetition has become also the way we communicate social media in the virtual world. So can we think that the speed of our times is going to make it even more irrelevant, the fact that we, destroy and rebuild movements? Is our memory getting smaller and smaller because we are living in an era where repetition is speeding up to the point that we don't remember anything?
First, I like of course, in the longer version of these ideas, I, of course, deal with Benjamin, and Benjamin has also, it's a Hegelian idea, the one of the garbage of history. But remember, Benjamin has a solution, which is not the utopian Marxist, but the messianic Jewish one. That is, it is when the messianic idea of salvation comes, redemption. History will get order. And remember the image of the ¿cómo se dice? Girasol. Remember the girasol that looks. ¿Cómo se dice girasol?
Sunflower.
Sunflower. Once the redemption. But of course, we cannot afford the messianic. I wish I could afford the messianic redemption, either Catholic or Jewish or some. But we cannot, and you are right. So what will save us? My point, if you want me to put it very philosophically, but in a cheap way, the only way somebody like me can do as a cheap philosopher is, it is in between, in staying in a state of temporary irony, in which we are aware of past evilness, but also aware that we might be doing evilness without realizing it, and not believing to be morally superior to all the past, and keeping the irony alive, and accepting that we come from porqueria, we are porqueria, and we will live porqueria, in the sense that we are not going to be racist, we are not going to be this, we're not going to be that, everything is going to be beautiful. If you think, we teach our students now that if life is not perfect, something is wrong. You and I, Adela, were taught that life is miserable. Life es un valle de lágrimas. And if you have a good day, thank God. But now we teach the other way around. Life must be wonderful every single second. If not, something is wrong. We have to give you a pill, or we have to send you to therapy, or somebody is bad. And so I want a sense of history in which irony is the basic of a sense of, hoy es, as Machado decía, hoy es siempre todavía. And let's wait. And that gives us a sense of moral entitlement to deal with the present, but not a superiority to begin that, to believe that it's over. Just keep trying. Just keep trying. Give us a moral sense of fighting, empirical sense of keep researching and understanding, but doesn't make us neither messianic and not morally superior by the fact that we are, 20th century hipsters. But something very important for me is what is going to happen with the sense of history and archives. In your field, mi querida Adela, everything is an archive. For me, an archive is a building that has a lot of papers. For you, archive is everything. When you talk an archive, I have to ask my literary students, do you mean the building, or what do you mean? Because everything is an archive. And archives sometimes are bad. Remember Derrida and the whole thing, the archive, blah, blah, blah. For me, the archive above all is chaos. And that's what is wonderful. It's a garbage dump in which we go to search for things. There are some bad guys calling catalogers or archivists that try to control everything. It's impossible to control. There is always there something to find. The problem, as you say today, is that we are creating not a lot of sense of archival, but a lot of sense of, I think of this more and more and more, it's more important the record of what you do than what you do. So it's not a matter whether you go to a Life Matters protest or not. The important thing is the picture. It doesn't matter whether you like chocolate cake or not. The important thing is the picture of the chocolate cake. Now, how is the world going to archive all that? Because there is record of all that. And second, what will be the use in so much immense material, how to make sense of that? That is something that is going to be incredibly complicated if you think that people think now because Google exists, everything, Funes el Memorioso already exists. His name is Google. The problem is, as you know, Funes doesn't think, doesn't know how to think. What is happening? I think of this, Adela, you and I in the good old days could sing by heart the songs. No one of my students can memorize a song. They sing with the iPhone in hand because they cannot memorize the songs. And so, or they read books in electronic fashion in which they cannot remember as you and I remember because we read it in such and such page, it's downloading this page, and there is a mark of my cigar mark there, and you remember the page. You don't remember the electronic book. So we are changing the ways of memorizing. What is going to happen? I have no idea. The garbage of history and the amount of archival material of images, everybody is becoming not a historian, a tremendous producers of archives. Everybody has 3 or 4 hard disks at home full of pictures, full of documents, full of everything. What is going to happen? I don't know. On the other hand, we are maybe the first generation with no capability of memorizing whatsoever. Nobody memorizes a poem. Nobody memorizes the lyrics of a song. Everything is in the internet. You just Google it and let's sing with the karaoke, but you don't memorize a thing. I asked my students today here this, and they all Google it. Nobody remember. And I said, don't you know it by heart? Why should I know it by heart? It's in Google. So if our students are not in internet, are not really with us.
Thank you so much, Professor Tenorio, there, and for the question, Adela. There are 3 questions in the Facebook chat. They are a little bit long, and we do have to get going by 10:15. So I just want to keep track of time because of the next panel that's coming. And yet, in some ways, your comments have addressed aspects of these questions. For the first question is from Dr. Sandra Rosenthal. She's anthropologist that has a question about, well, what actually should be done with controversial monuments that have been thrown down by social movements? So, for example, the Purepecha communities, the derribando de colonial figures. Her question is a longer one, but it comes down to this question of like, yes, I definitely in agreement with not destroying, but then what should be done with the ones that are destroyed? How to kind of deal with these ruins of the past. Especially when local governments are calling in historians and anthropologists to figure out what to do with them. So that's one question. And related to this is the question of, well, what about, and this is from Enrique Davila, the question of what about changing names of schools, college campuses, buildings? So there's a different type of monumentality that happens with naming. And so one thing is to throw down a monument, another thing is to change names, and how does that affect how we're thinking about spatiality and memory. And then on the third part of it, and this is from Ana Lopez, if you could tell us more about the definition of history that you're dealing with and the we that you're referring to. So that's kind of the opposite side of like, who are the we when we're talking about history, especially, and when you say the dumpster of history, que es lo único que nos queda, who does this refer to in a collective sense? So that's, those are the 3 questions.
Well, let me try to, if I remember correctly, to answer some of them, but not all of them. First, the sense of, yes, the changing of names and everything, I'm all for, and I don't oppose. I think it's great, and this is what history is about. This is what good history, and it has always been. You know, the French Revolution even changed the name of the dates, the name of the names of the calendar. I mean, it's nothing extraordinary. This is what they do. So we believe to change the thing. My only problem is think of the goodness and the sort of sense of hypocrisy that I feel with our views in history, not public, but in the terms of campus and university life. We change the names, and we want to change the door name because we want to be clean and we don't want to honor the bad guys and everything. Like here in Barcelona, they removed the image of El Conde, El Marqués de Comillas, who of course was involved in the slave trade in Cuba. And so they removed it, and there was a scandal. It also happens to be that he was not a Catalan, so the independenties were very happy to remove a non-Catalan from the streets of Barcelona. But nobody got the idea of destroying El Parque Güell or La Pedrera or Gaudí buildings, because if you are going to be really honest and clean the past, then destroy the buildings. All those buildings are made with slave money. All that money is Cuban. All that money is done dirty. So where does our indignity ends? Where our sense of purity ends? Just removing the statues, or we're going to remove the entire University of Texas, because the entire University of Texas is also built with, you know, tech, oil money and ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. There is a sense of hypocrisy. And my sense of thing is, and why remove it? Why not realizing that we are all coming from porqueria? Why is it so difficult to accept that you come from porqueria? That you come from very cruel people, that wherever we are, being African American, Mexicans, or Americans, we all come from terrible infamies. Why is it so difficult to accept it? Why do we have to clean the past and tell them, no, we have to clean so that you don't know, so that you don't see a slave owner? Well, slave owners were very important. Okay, let's change the name. But how are you going to teach that this happened? How are you going to do, where are you going to stop? So there's a sense of hypocrisy of, you know, we're going to change names, we're going to change this. I mean, history is bad, history is terrible, history is awful. So when are we going to stop and say, you know, you cannot clean it? It's impossible to clean. Now, regarding my sense of history, you know, I have written many books about what I mean by history. I'm not going to repeat that. I just want to address the we. The we in my talk meant two things. The we meant we professors and students, university people, which are thinking a lot about this, but also a sense of we contemporaries of our time, the time we are living. And so basically that's where we were. And at some point I meant my immigrant students in Pilsen, who, when I was criticizing the heroes, told me, you know, well, don't criticize our heroes, Mexican heroes, because as immigrants in the United States, it's all we have left here. So don't laugh at them. Because one of the things that we have to realize with irony and history, and in the long paper I talk about is, one of the ways in which contemporary art has dealt with history is by mockery. Let me give you an example. A contemporary artist recently painted a painting of Zapata with a huge, over a horse, naked as a drag queen, and the horse had a terrible erection. And that was wonderful, and it was exhibited in Bellas Artes. And as far as contemporary art is a matter of galleries and fancy places of art, no problem. The problem is that I was in Bellas Artes, and there was a peasant protest outside, and they went in and saw the Zapata, and then there was a huge revolt because they couldn't see Zapata represented in that way. So what do? Do we repress the contemporary art because he's painting a trans Zapata, or do we try to teach the peasant to accept the trans? So it's not that easy to deal with it. Mockery for mockery's sake is wonderful if you are going to sell in galleries, but it's not going to be public art. It's not going to be accepted. The other way to make our contemporary art acceptable with historical topic is a trick that is very old. Think of the African American Museum in Washington, recently inaugurated. It's just an architectural box with a facade made of iron, like a mask, like an African mask put in a simple, too common building. Why is it so wonderful? Because it was made by an African. So the identity of the artist becomes the saving of art and history together, but that's not, it's a trick. Why is the identity of the artist going to say and produce contemporary art and history just because the person is African American or Mexican or Indian or whatever? That is the trick we are doing. The identity of the artist saves us from the complex relationship of history and contemporary art. Because if it's an African American, it's the real thing. Why? Why is the real thing? Why? Because of being an African American, you are going to be able to really put together contemporary art that is disruptive, terrible, shocking, breaking with all roots, but at the same time respects history and creates a public art. Why? Because of your identity. That is the common way of doing it. But there are very few examples in which contemporary art really has shocked public. Think of the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, who was more being accepted as such. But it was a very complicated discussion of 30 years. It was a great artist. It is an important moment. So it is not that easy.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Tenorio. There's one more question. I think we have time for it. We have about 5 more minutes, and it's from CJ Alvarez. And the question is the US-Mexico border fence a monument? And if you consider it so, what are the circumstances under which it would be torn down and warehoused, if at all?
First of all, my regards to CJ, my former student. I hope he's doing okay. I think in the long run, not now, the Mexican-American border is going to be like the Chinese Wall. Remember, as an incredible but useless attempt to stop the destiny of people. It will be remembered, you know, at some point Americans thought that they could remain Americans without changing, and endlessly the same, and that they could keep the barbarians outside. But one day they discovered that the barbarians were already in their beds, and the barbarians were already their children, and the barbarians were already their maids, and the whole thing collapsed. And the Mexican-American border will be a kind of like the Berlin Wall or the Chinese Wall, or the Chinese Wall, as a sort of memory of when people thought they could control their destiny. It's a nonsense that is there, trying to keep two sovereignties which are not even, I mean, the whole integration, human, political, economic, criminal, musical, is complete. But the wall stands as a symbol of, no, we are not the same, and we are separated, and we can keep them out. And also for Mexicans, because in Mexico will always be remembered, you know, we will never be Americanized, but one day they realized that they were already American, as Americans were already Mexican. And they will realize, okay, the wall stands there as a memory of when we thought we were different. But I hope, and especially in this moment in which we are starting a new war, that at some point people will realize how dangerous are these monuments. You know, the walls in the European Union existed until they kill each other sufficiently so that they created the European Union. And whatever you think of the European Union, Europe is safer than ever in his entire centuries and centuries of history. The idea of a French and English war or a Spanish-French war is unthinkable, thanks to the existence of the European Union. At some point, Mexican Americans and Canadians will kill each other so that we do something like that. And the wall will be something like one of those memories of the refugees that I talk about, one of those relics that we will keep there. And hopefully we will put pictures of Trump, and we will do the whole thing, and kids will put a tail to Trump as they do to the donkey in the school. They will go there and put a tail to the something like that. That's what I think, CJ. By the way, CJ have beautiful pictures of the border. He has a collection of his own pictures of the border, very beautiful.
Well, thank you so much again for helping us think through the space between the not yet and the no longer, which we're currently inhabiting. It's not a comfortable place to be in, and yet it allows us to think what can be thinkable and how that isn't here yet, and think about the past in ways that can allow us to be creative and ironic, hopefully. Thank you so much again. Wonderful beginning of the conference, and I encourage you to the audience for your Facebook live streaming. So thank you all for being here. And we will now transition into our first panel, Histories of Collecting and Collecting, stories that this talk has actually been a wonderful way of setting that conversation forward. So I welcome you all to our first panel, and thank you again, Professor Tenorio.